Disclaimer, I don't own any of the music being played in this podcast. I'm just doing this for fun. Don't flag me, please. But while you're here, can you give me a like and a subscribe? That'd be dope. See you later. Sweet Christmas. Anyway, welcome to episode 19 of Chaz's Sound Test. So, editor's note, I called this episode 19, it's 17. That's my bad. Really bad look. Sorry. It's, as usual, it's been a while, but I can't... It's been hard for me to try to do this consistently, but I swear, at the end of every episode, I swear I'm going to do more of these more consistently, but it just comes harder and harder with, like, all the projects that I have going on and real life stuff going on. But anyway, let's cut straight to the chase with this episode. This episode is going to be dedicated to the soundtracks of the side-scrolling beat-em-up genre of video games. One of my favorite genres of video games of all time. It's going to be difficult to cover every one that I like, or all the most iconic ones. So I'm gonna have to split this into two separate episodes. That's right, this is gonna be a two-part episode. So I want to cover the major ones first. Like in the intro, you heard the character select screen to Streets of Rage 2 specifically, even though Streets of Rage 1 and 2 have the same character select theme. They say they have the same character select theme, but we're gonna focus on the first three, like the original trilogy of Streets of Rage, because Streets of Rage is kind of like a hallmark of the beat 'em up genre. Same thing with Final Fight. We're gonna talk about Final Fight today as well, and finally we're gonna talk about the River City Ransom / Kunio-Kun series. You know, those games are split off into so many other things. There's so many other side games and spin-offs and just so much of that game too. But let's start off with Final Fight, because the first beat 'em up I remember... Well, actually, that can't be right. I was going to say that Final Fight 1 was the first beat 'em up that I remember playing, but I don't think that's correct. I think the first beat 'em up that I ever played was probably the old TMNT arcade game. Not Turtles in Time, but the original one prior to that one. I think that's the earliest beat 'em up that I remember playing. I played Final Fight 1 a little bit later on. But definitely my first memory of the beat-em-up genre was probably the old Turtles arcade game. Final Fight 1 was revered because it was like probably one of Capcom's biggest franchises. One of Capcom's biggest franchises after Mega Man, but before Street Fighter. So it was kind of like in this weird middle ground where they were coming out with a bunch of stuff, but like not everything was hitting like quite on the level of Mega Man like they wanted it to, or Street Fighter afterwards, because this is common knowledge by now, but Final Fight was supposed to be a sequel to Street Fighter, and it kind of, sort of is. It takes place in the same universe. Final Fight 1 was going to be known as Street Fighter 89, as in 1989, not the 89th game, but that happened, and I'm trying to remember if I even liked Final Fight at first. Like I didn't like enjoy it for what it was, but I don't think I got an appreciation for it until I played the Super Nintendo version, even though the Super Nintendo version is a greatly neutered, nerfed version from the arcade version. Like you couldn't play as Guy, you can only play as Hager and Cody in the Super Nintendo version. A lot of the sprites and things were edited and censored, and all the blood was taken out, a lot of the dialogue was changed, and then there's the whole poison transgender thing happening. It was just like, there was a lot of, like, the Super Nintendo version is not great compared to the arcade version. Like, it's probably the worst version of the game, but I played that one the most. So like, but like this is before like Final Fight 2 and 3 would come out. And those were Super Nintendo exclusives, and as of yet, those games have never been re-released on anything. At least I don't remember them being re-released on anything. I believe Final Fight 2 and 3 were released on the Wii Virtual Console like more than a decade ago. I think that was the only time they reported to anything else that wasn't the Super Nintendo. But there's no like Final Fight collection or anything like that. Like the best you got is the Final Fight Impact, like was Double Impact on the 360 and PS3, and those only incorporate Final Fight 1. It's Final Fight 1, I think Magic Sword, which is like a super obscure Capcom beat 'em up compared to Streets of Rage. But like, it's so weird that Final Fight 2 and 3 don't get re-releases ever. It's very strange. Like I would love to see like Final Fight 2 and 3 get re-released on like the Switch or PS4 or Steam and get like online co-op or something like that. I think it would be a really cool and basic thing to do. I don't see why Capcom's never done that, but understanding why Capcom doesn't do a lot of things is just like way beyond my comprehension. So, but we're gonna play some tracks from the trilogy, like from Final Fight 1, Final Fight 2, Final Fight 3. I want to know what you guys think of the Final Fight trilogy. Not any of the spin-offs or anything, anytime where Final Fight gets incorporated into Street Fighter. Like, I like Final Fight 1. Final Fight 2 is okay. I don't think it did anything... It didn't do a lot different from Final Fight 1. Honestly, I think Final Fight 2, out of the 3 games, are probably... Final Fight 2 is probably, like, the least interesting one. I mean, I do like Maki and I like Carlos Miyamoto, but I think that's like all that's really interesting about it. Some of the music in Final Fight 2 is okay. I'm gonna be honest, I think Final Fight 1's original arcade soundtrack is kind of crap. So I don't think it's very good because Final Fight 1 was done on CPS 1, which is Capcom Play System 1's hardware, and a lot of the games on CPS 1 don't have good music. Like, Capcom didn't start hitting a stride with like good arcade music until the CPS2 era, where like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Alpha 1 and like the Marvel vs. games and like stuff like that. So, but Final Fight 1 is unfortunately part of the previous era where a lot of the music was just kind of like generic bleeps and bloops, and a lot of it's really incomprehensible. So what I chose for Final Fight 1, I chose 2 really iconic songs from Final Fight. However, I chose the Sega CD versions of those songs, so they're all like, because Sega CD probably has the best version of Final Fight 1, especially the OST, of any other version of Final Fight, because it's like, you know, clean CD audio, so it sounds really, it's arranged and it sounds good. So it's really using real instruments and all that stuff. So we're gonna play. I'm not gonna beat around the bush in this episode, so I'm just gonna have like a whole string of songs. So I'm going to play 2 songs from Final Fight CD, Final Fight 1 CD version. I'm going to play the Slum Above Ground theme and the Subway Beginning theme from Final Fight CD. Then from Final Fight 2, which has okay music, I'm going to play Carve, a Dragonwood, and Fret Street Beat. That's title stupid. And then finally from Final Fight 3, which I swear only has like 9 songs in the game. I looked at the OST, it says it has about 20 songs, but I feel like it's only about 8 or less. We're gonna play Law and Order, which is like not the TV show, but it's probably the most heard song in Final Fight 3, and Down and Out, which is also a really good song I like from Final Fight 3. So we're gonna play 6 Final Fight songs, and then we're gonna move from that to Streets of Rage in the next segment. So here we go. See, those songs are good, right? It's hard to compare these songs to the songs that are coming up next because it's really a really unfair comparison. But the songs in Final Fight 2 and 3 are good. They're kind of samey, they're kind of generic, but they're still good. Final Fight 1's music is very iconic because like it gets arranged and remixed a lot in like later games. Like you hear a lot of Final Fight stuff in starting from Street Fighter Alpha 1 and Alpha 2, and then again in Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5. There's a lot of callbacks to Final Fight stuff. Final Fight songs specifically, but Streets of Rage 2 and 3, there's not a lot of callbacks to that. Like I said, like Capcom tries to pretend that Final Fight 2 and 3 don't really exist. So it's just like, it kind of sucks that those soundtracks never got arrangements or remixes or callbacks to anything. It's a little bit of a bummer, but in comparison, it's kind of unfair to compare Final Fight music to Streets of Rage music, because Streets of Rage music is fantastic. And it's done by Yuzo Kurshiro, who's like one of the gods of video game composing. So it's a bit of an unfair comparison. Back in the day, but when a lot of us 80s and 90s children were kids / teenagers, back during the console wars, you can't see the quotations I'm making right now, but back during the console wars, it was about which was better, Final Fight or Streets of Rage, Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis, who was better, who liked what more. I was a spoiled kid, so I had both, but I'm gonna admit I was probably more of a Super Nintendo kid than I was a Sega Genesis kid. I had a Sega Genesis mostly for Sonic, for the Shinobi games, the Streets of Rage games, and for usually a lot of the, let's say the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 were better, obviously. Well, maybe not 2, but 1 definitely was better on Genesis than SNES. But also for the Shinobi series, which I really liked, was also done by Yuzo Koshiro as well. But, Streets of Rage music, man. It's a lot of those songs still hold up today. Like, it's gotten to a point where like there's so many Streets of Rage likes being released on Steam and on modern consoles, and we all know Streets of Rage 4 is coming out soon, and naturally Yuzo Koshiro is going to be on top of that soundtrack, and he's a legend. So like it's hard to like compare his music to anyone else's. Like he has a lot of like, you can hear in his music a lot of his inspiration comes from a lot of like 90s hip hop and R&B and drum and bass, and then like you get to the Streets of Rage 3 where he does a lot more experimental stuff with like electronica and techno and weird like mechanical-esque music, and it's just like all is good. Like I remember when I was a kid, I didn't really like Streets of Rage 3's OST that much, because like to me I wasn't really into like techno and mechanical stuff back then, so it was weird to me. It was just really jarring. Like, why this just sounds like noise. And then like I remember a lot of like reviewers in game magazines said the same thing. They were like, yeah, this is okay, but the music's just like, it's just kind of like nothing. It's just noise. But then like I grew to appreciate it more. So like Streets of Rage music is definitely better now. Now that I'm older and appreciate more genres of music, but like you can't really beat Streets of Rage's music, and it sucked that we didn't get like. Well, it's cool now that Streets of Rage 4 is a thing, but we didn't get Streets of Rage. The series had been dead for a long time. Like Streets of Rage 3 came out in '94, and it's 2020 now, and now Streets of Rage 4 is coming out. Like you got a lot of Streets of Rage likes. Like what was the game? Fight and Rage on Steam was a Streets of Rage like. Then you had like more modern ones like the Takeover, which was actually like if you've played the Takeover, it's very inspired by Streets of Rage. Like it's even the mechanics like of the fight mechanics are like, very very similar to Streets of Rage. Like it even got to a point where like Yuzo Koshiro actually was contacted and he composed a track for the Takeover as the best track in the game. And that's just my opinion, but like I want to know what you guys think is better, like overall between the Streets of Rage trilogy or the Final Fight trilogy. I want you to know. I want you guys to mention it in the comments of both the video and audio versions. I want to hear your opinions on it. Like I'm currently on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/chasmosis. I'm currently, well, not currently. I'm going to start playing a lot of like side-scrolling beat 'em ups and then rate them. And I want to know which ones are better. Like, I'll spoil a little bit. I don't think Streets of Rage 1 mechanically has aged as well as Final Fight 1 is. I think Final Fight 1 is way better than Streets of Rage 1 in my opinion, but I think it's the opposite for the next two games. I like Streets of Rage 2 is far better than Final Fight 2. And I think Streets of Rage 3 and Final Fight 3 are a little more even as far as overall games, but like Streets of Rage 3 soundtrack blows Final Fight 3 soundtrack out of the water. It's not even funny. But let's actually get to the music. I'm gonna pick a lot of my favorites, and I want you guys to talk about your favorites in the comments too. But from Streets of Rage 1, I'm gonna be playing the title theme, Stage 1, which is Fighting in the Street, Stage 4, which is Keep the Groovin', which is a very 90s title, and finally my favorite song from Final Fight 1. My favorite song from Streets of Rage 1, which is called Violent Breathing, which is the 7th stage. Then from Streets of Rage 2, I'm going to play Go Straight, which is like probably the most iconic song from that game. It's even appeared in like other like crossover stuff. Like if you've ever played Project Cross Zone 2, Axel makes an appearance in that game, and they play his Go Straight for his theme song. Go Straight, then In the Bar. There's two versions of In the Bar. There's a fast version, which is the original, and then there's then In the Bar 2, which is the slow version. Then Spin on the Bridge, which is another really, really good song. Then Streets of Rage 3, I'm gonna play Dub Slash, which is one of the earlier stages. I think it's like stage 2. The boss theme of Streets of Rage 3 is really good. Happy Paradise is a really good 90s-esque like groovin' song, and then like finally Shinobi Reverse, which is apparently it's literally a song from Revenge of Shinobi played in reverse and like chopped and screwed and messed around with, which I didn't even know about that until literally earlier today. I found that out. Wild. Anyway, I'm gonna be playing 11 songs straight from Streets of Rage 1 to 3. So this is the Streets of Rage portion of the episode. Enjoy. That's a good playlist right there. That's a good case study to like hear all, like, not all of his songs, but all, like, a batch of songs of Yuzo Kushiro's from Streets of Rage 1, then 2, then 3. I want you guys to notice, like, I wonder if you guys, like, observed how much his music, like, started to change between the games. Like, it started off as, like, a lot of, like, straight up 90s R&B pop style stuff in the first game and part of the second game, and then, like, near the end of the second game, it started to get very electronica, trancey type of music, and then, like, in 3 was straight up all that, like, all very fast paced, like, very noise oriented electronica industrial type shit. It's really interesting how much his music changed from the first game to the third game. Like, it's a really interesting, like, comparison to make. But, like, Yuzo Koshiro is, like, the best. You can't really say anything bad about his music. Like, I used to not like Streets of Rage 3's music, but then, like, I grew to appreciate it way more listening to it again. Like, it's just the best. He's like top 10 greatest video game composers of all time, like, straight up. Let's get to the third and final game on the playlist tonight. Let's talk about the River City Ransom / Kunio-Kun series. I admit I wasn't really into this series until I got into the series way late. I want to say, like, probably like 2013, 2014, like, I started to get into that series. I wasn't a big fan of the Kunio games, like, back in the day. Like, I remember playing River City Ransom. I'm like, wait, this game's way too long, and I don't really understand it, and it just kind of went over my head when I was a kid. And then, like, I remember playing that fan-made sequel that got published called River City Underground. I did not like that game at all. Hated it. It was too long. It was very grindy. I don't like beat 'em ups that are grindy. Like, you have to, like, you have experience and you have to level up and you have to, like, just stay in one spot and just keep beating up people over and over and over and over and over again. I hate those. And that's why, like, this is a negative. This is gonna be like a hot take, but that's why, the same reason why I didn't really like Dragon's Crown that much. Wasn't a big fan because there's I don't like beat 'em ups that are long. I don't like beat 'em ups that are, like, grindy, that force you to, like, get to a certain level in order to go to a certain room. I hate it. Never liked those. And there were a lot of problems. I felt like there were a lot of problems in the original River City NES game, but then, like, I played Tokyo Rumble, which is, like, a remake of the original River City Ransom on the 3DS years later, and I really liked that. And I think there was a lot of problems with the original one, like, as far as, like, the length and, like, as far as, like, the game wasn't really clear on what you needed to do and where you needed to go. But then Tokyo Rumble, like, kind of, like, simplified a lot of that stuff, and I feel like that game needed a remake, and that's more or less what Tokyo Rumble is, and I love that game. That game's awesome. And so the music in that game is iconic if you've played them. Like I said, like, the Kunio series is way bigger in Japan than it is here. But, like, lately there's been like kind of a River City resurgence thanks to Arxis buying the license to that and Double Dragon. So there's a lot more Kunio-Kun stuff coming out now. Like, there was a 4-player Smash-like game that came out. I forgot what it's called now. But I played that, and that's really fun. And then, of course, River City Girls, which we're going to talk about, playing the last 6 songs. And the last 3 songs are going to be River City Girls songs. And that was a collaborative effort by Arc System Works and Way Forward, who was the makers of, like, the Shantae series and Contra 4 and a lot of, like, old 2D style remakes. Like, they also did the Disney Channel, not Disney Channel, they did the DuckTales remaster, which is also a phenomenal game. And they also did Double Dragon Neon a few years ago, which is also a really, really good game. But yeah, like, Way Forward does a lot of, like, old school stuff really well. And then, like, another thing that Way Forward does, they have Jake Kaufman as one of their main composers for a lot of their games, and his music is just, like, I would say he's, like, one tier below Yuzo Koshiro. He's up there. He's, like, in my top 10 greatest composers as well. He does a lot of good stuff. Like, he did the Shovel Knight soundtrack. That's fantastic. So, like, Like, but going back to the River City Ransom slash the original Kunio-Kun game, if you've played those games, you know that the music is it's hard to forget if you've played them. But if you, a lot of people haven't. But like, I think a lot of those songs are like pretty catchy and pretty memorable. Probably should have picked the Tokyo Rumble versions of those songs because they're arranged. But like, since River City Ransom is a NES slash Famicom game, you're only gonna hear the 8-bit versions of them. So I chose the Streets theme, I chose the cutscene theme, and I chose the boss theme for River City Ransom. Which in River City Girls you fight a Bobo, who's also a Double Dragon character, but in his theme in River City Girls is a remix of the old NES boss theme from the original River City Ransom, which I thought was a really cool touch. And then for River City Girls, which I'm going to play right after those songs, I'm going to play the opening theme, which is sung by Christina V, who's a voice actress, and she does a lot of stuff for Way Forward as well. She's the voice of Shantae, I'm pretty sure, and a bunch of other characters in that series. And River City Girls is very interesting because it has like a really like poppy 80s-esque soundtrack, which I think is like, I've never heard like insert songs in a beat 'em up before, so I feel like this is the first time it's ever done a beat 'em up's ever done anything like that, and I think it's really, really well done. It fits the aesthetic of that game. And my personal two favorite vocal tracks in the game are a song called Bully, which is one of the stage themes in the game, and then the third song, which is called Noise, Noize, which is one of the names of the bosses in the game. And when you fight this boss, she's kind of like a punk rock star, and when you fight her, it's like in this weird Guitar Hero-esque setting. It's really weird, but it's really well done. Like, I recommend everybody to play River City Girls. It's probably one of the best beat-em-ups of this generation. It's really, really, really good. So, to close it out, for part one at least, we're going to play 3 songs from River City Ransom, the original, and then River City Girls, which is like the latest installment of that series. And I know a bunch of you are wondering, where's Double Dragon? Where's Ninja Turtles? Where's X-Men? Where's all these other beat-em-ups? Can't fit them all in one episode, like I said at the beginning. So the next episode, like part 2, is going to feature all the licensed stuff, like the Ninja Turtles games, the X-Men games, the Simpsons beat-em-up, all these other beat-em-ups I didn't talk about, and specifically Double Dragon, which is one of the OGs, so we have to talk about that too. So, but Double Dragon there's so many Double Dragon games, we have to get to our own. I could have an entire episode of just Double Dragon music, but like we're gonna work with that when part 2 comes out. So we're gonna close out this episode with the 6 songs from both River City Ransom and River City Girls as the last one for part 1. Then I'm gonna close the episode out with one last song, and then we're gonna be done for now. So stay tuned for this River City playlist. Yeah, man. That soundtrack's so good. And that game's so good. You should go play that game now. Like, literally after you finish listening to this podcast, you should just go get it. Go buy the game. I think it's like $15 now. Just go get it. River City Girls is good. It's it's in my top 4 favorite beat 'em ups of all time. You should probably just get it. But anyway, like, we will continue this look back, this retrospective, this tribute to beat 'em up music next time. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later. But yeah, twitch.tv/Chazmosis. I'm gonna be playing more turn-based JRPGs, more fighting games, more side-scrolling beat 'em ups, and that's pretty much all that there's gonna be. Like, go to youtube.com/CJ Blogman. That's where the normal Let's Plays with the rest of the group are. OtakuGamerspot.com. I probably should update the main site at this point. That's all there is to it, man. Like, stay tuned for the next part. Like, I'm going to talk about more of the licensed stuff, the TMNTs, your X-Men, your Simpsons, your Double Dragon, even though it's not really a licensed property, it was a game first, but you know what I mean. So I will catch you guys whenever that happens. Hopefully, like I said, sooner than later. Peace out.